Fakesagan is a globalist? What? Okay, so let me admit right off the bat, that's clickbait, okay? That is a deliberately misleading title that's intended to shock you. I'm certainly not a globalist in the way that you would traditionally think of one. Um, and that is to say somebody who rejects the idea of national sovereignty in favor of a one world government. But let me add this caveat. The reason why I'm so opposed to the idea of one world government is that, who's going to be in control of this one world government? Is it going to be controlled by a relatively small group, a small cabal of banking interests and corporate captains of industry? Um, is it essentially going to be a shadow government? Um, that's the idea that I find so distasteful. If we envision, on the other hand, a one world government that's more democratic in form and beholden to the will of the people, then I wouldn't necessarily view that as a dystopian nightmare. Um, Yet, in my own strange way, I am a globalist, and I'm going to explain in this video what that means. So, in this video right here, DNC email hacks, of course it was Russia, duh. I got a comment from the philosophical hipster, and he says, I don't know how I feel about all this. I remember a while back in a newspaper, they were making predictions about the future, and one was that the United States will have less power over the world than it has now. I can see that happening. And I quoted where he says the United States will have less power over the world than it has now, and I responded by saying that would be the best thing that could possibly happen for the American people. We have a government that spends all of our tax dollars on imperialist efforts and military spending, allowing our domestic infrastructure, social programs, and domestic economy to crumble. To which he replied, yeah, I definitely agree that does not necessarily has to be a bad thing. By the way, I'm actually from Holland. Should have pointed that out earlier. Well, you could have pointed that out earlier, P-Hip, but it wouldn't have changed anything. I don't care that you're from Holland. I feel that your opinion about United States politics is every bit as valid as mine, a U.S. citizen. And I'm going to get a little bit into the reasons why. See, in recent videos that I've made, I have said, in defense of Donald Trump, that foreign opinion about Donald Trump is largely favorable. Obviously, Russian citizens are ecstatic that he won the election, but also elsewhere in Europe and in the Netherlands, people generally seem to be enthusiastic about the prospect of a Trump presidency, and they seem to be relieved that Hillary Clinton did not win. And my fellow U.S. citizens might be wondering at this point, well, why do you care about that? Like, who cares what they think? Because they're not Americans, they're foreigners. So who cares what they think about the outcome of our election and who's the president of the United States? I do. I care. The Fakesagan cares. And this video is where I'm going to explain why. But I want to point out that what I'm saying in this video, while it may be controversial, it is entirely consistent with everything I've been saying in recent videos. For example, this video right here, DNC email hacks, of course it was Russia, duh. The opinion that I put forth in that video is that I do believe that Russian hackers were responsible for obtaining the DNC emails and subsequently releasing them to WikiLeaks, but that I don't care about that. That I do not interpret that as a cyber attack against the United States. Especially considering the fact that while it might seem like the Democratic Party is actually a branch of our government or some kind of government agency, they're actually not. I mean, yeah, I realize that the two-party system has become so entrenched that they seem like they're a department of our government, but they're not. So essentially, it's not like the Russians broke into the Department of Defense database or something. I mean, fuck the Democrats and Republicans. Who cares? But getting back on track, I don't see that as a cyber attack on the United States. I see it as an example of muckraking journalism. I see this essentially as Vladimir Putin being like Woodward and Bernstein. He's releasing information to the American public so that we were able to make an informed choice at the polls. Essentially picking up the slack where our domestic, controlled corporate mainstream media has left off. So the mainstream media seems to no longer feel that investigative journalism is part of their job anymore. They've become completely obsessed with this idea of access journalism. In other words, we're going to politely knock on the White House door and ask to be let in. And then, of course, what they become is essentially mouthpieces for the administration. They become White House spokespersons. Well, the White House already has a spokesperson. That job is taken. So, to the mainstream media, what you should be doing is investigative journalism. That's your job. Now, right now, CNN is freaking out because they realize that they're not going to have access to the Trump administration. Donald Trump is going to give CNN the cold shoulder, and with very good reason. And to CNN, I offer the following advice. If you can't get access, do investigation. Instead of politely knocking on the White House door and asking to be let in, sneak up to the Oval Office window and take some paparazzi pics. Now, I may be a Donald Trump supporter. In fact, I am a vociferous and enthusiastic Donald Trump supporter. Yet, nevertheless, I would welcome some investigative journalism of the Trump administration. Do your fucking job, mainstream media. But anyway, the reason why I bring all this up is that if you examine my opinion that hypothetically, because again, there's no proof that it was Russia, but if we are to assume that Russian hackers are the ones who obtain these DNC emails and release them to WikiLeaks, the fact that I see this as journalism kind of indicates that I don't see this same divide, this us versus them divide between the United States and Russia that the average person would, okay? So to me, this is really no different than if a U.S. citizen were to hack into the DNC and release these emails. I really see no difference. Because in my own strange way, I'm a globalist. Hey, we're still waiting for you to explain that, Fakesagan. Well, here it comes right here. So, when our founding fathers declared independence from the British Empire, one of the main reasons that they did so, if not the foremost reason, was this idea of taxation without representation. So essentially, the lives of the colonists were determined to a very great extent by the British Crown, and they were levying onerous trade tariffs and taxes upon the colonists. But the colonists didn't have a whole lot of say in how their and how all of these policy decisions were made. So this is where we get this term taxation without representation. Now, the Founding Fathers envisioned a very different vision of the United States than what we actually see today. They envisioned the United States to be a plucky little isolationist republic. And instead what we've become is this expansive global military and economic empire. So essentially the United States occupies the same geopolitical position which was held by the British Empire at the time of the American Revolution. And that's a problem. Now, in 1821, when Monroe was the president, there was public debate in the United States over whether or not we should get involved in wars of independence in South America. You know, in other words, should we do nation building? Should we venture forth into South America and spread our American democracy? And John Quincy Adams gave a speech, which I'm probably going to butcher. I'm doing this from memory, so I know I'm going to fuck it up, so forgive me. But he said something to the effect of, America ventures not abroad in search of monsters to destroy. In other words, he discouraged this idea of nation building. And the reason he gave for this, the warning that he gave, is that were we to do so, America would become dictatress of the world and no longer be the ruler of her own spirit. And I think in the current year that is exactly what's happened. We've become dictatress of the world and no longer rulers of our own spirit. Now, getting back to philosophical hipster here and why your opinion is important to me. Well, you live in Holland, so what? The United States has 2 military bases in the Netherlands. This right here is a map of U.S. military bases around the world. Currently, the United States has almost 800 military bases in 70 countries around the world. So the time when the United States was a plucky little isolationist republic has long since passed. And we have taken on the mantle of the British Empire. We have become an expansive globalist, global military and trade empire. You know, we could, and it's not just this issue of military bases. It's not just the fact that we have almost 800 military bases in 70 countries around the world. And like I said, including 2 in the Netherlands. We also control all the trade routes. We control the seas. Britannia rules the seas with the world's most powerful navy. The United States has the world's largest and most powerful navy, and we control trade routes. So we are the British Empire. We are the new British Empire. And that being the case, what that essentially means is that the U.S. president is no longer just president of the United States. He is, in essence, for all intents and purposes, the emperor of the world. The U.S. president is the emperor of the world. And that being the case, I think that the people of the world should have a say in who is their emperor. All right? So they are being taxed and therefore should be represented. And that's the way I feel. You know, and Americans might disagree. They might say, oh, that's such an un-American thing to believe. Well, it's not un-American. Not if you believe in democracy. If you believe in the principles of democracy, the principles our founding fathers upheld, and this idea that people should have self-determination over the way their lives are governed, then what I'm saying right now shouldn't shock you and it shouldn't upset you. But I'm going to actually take this a step further. I believe that the right to vote in U.S. presidential elections should be extended to foreigners. I also believe that the Constitution should be amended to allow for foreign-born citizens to seek the office of the United States presidency. Now, am I saying this to be deliberately provocative and controversial? No, although I do recognize that will be the outcome. I'm saying this because it's what I believe. And look, I would be more than willing to rescind these statements were we to scale back our empire. Okay, so if we're going to close down these 800 military bases in 70 countries in the world and stop dominating all the trade routes, then I would be more than, you know, if that were the case, if the United States were to go back to being a plucky little isolationist republic, then the idea of foreigners voting in our elections or foreign-born citizens seeking the office of the presidency, that idea would be abhorrent to me. I would then interpret it as tyranny. But we haven't scaled back our empire yet. Okay, so with the current geopolitical chessboard in the arrangement that it is now, I do feel that foreigners should have some say in U.S. politics because it's affecting their lives. All right? Since we are the global empire, I think the citizens of the world should have a say in who their emperor is. I know I'm going to take a lot of flack. I'm fully expecting angry, butthurt Americans to rip me a new one in the comments section below and tell me what an idiot I am. Well, go ahead, feel free to do so. I'm always more than willing to defend my ideas. So, yeah, that's the way I see things. If we're willing to scale our empire back and stop nation building, stop dominating the way global trade is arranged, and stop essentially being the new British Empire, then I wouldn't be saying the things that I'm saying. But since the United States dominates the world, I think in the interest, in the true spirit of democracy, then we can't levy taxation without representation upon every country in the world. They should have a say in who their emperor is, who the United States president is. And I think that the Constitution should be amended so that foreign-born citizens can seek that office. So, there you have it. That's all the news that's fit to print. Keep it fake.